Good day everyone, I lost a bet with my patrons during a gaming night, so I had to make this video. This is the Tickle Monster versus the Old Man. We are continuing with the previous two 106 and 999 videos in mind. Those being the ones where 106 and 035 are brothers, and the one where 999 destroyed 035. Check out the pinned comment to get your own adorable Tickle Monster plushie, and let's get started. Excerpt from A is for Anomaly and Survival is Not Just For You by Dr. Stanford.
In the event of a breach by SCP-106, the entirety of Site-19's non-military personnel are to be evacuated and relocated to adjacent Site-19B. Valid exit points are Gates A and B. Gate C is not to be used, as it is too close to the containment cell for SCP-106. In the event that you are unable to escape Site-19 in time, please attempt to flee from SCP-106 for as long as possible. Your sacrifice will be used to gain time for other trapped individuals. Once captured, attempt to remain conscious as long as possible. You are encouraged to display a fear response. This will extend the time until 106 finishes hunting you, and will therefore further delay selection of another target. SCP-106 generated discharges and decayed products are extremely hazardous to human life. Few individuals have escaped once exposed to them, but all of those report a sense of being watched through the remainder of their lives. If you experience these symptoms, or believe that you hear a low laugh during your dreams, please report these experiences to your administrative contact.
Dr. Amanda Dalton, cryptozoologist, was running for her life near Gate C of the heavy containment zone for Site-19. The creature chasing her was one she had a vague passing familiarity with. The safety books had outlined the proper procedure for extending your life when captured in its web, but there was nothing about how to avoid being caught in the first place. When she'd asked, the only response was, "Don't draw 106's attention in the first place. That's the best thing you can do." So when she spotted his blackened, cracked skin down the hallway just outside her office, she tried her best to just ignore it. But the creature disappeared from her periphery as soon as she looked away from it. And when she turned around, he towered over her. Then he wrapped his sickly-looking arms around her while looking at her with a dead man's grin. She trembled in his grasp as she sank into the floor. There was nothing but darkness. The black, sticky substance began to move on its own accord, trying to pry its way into her mouth, into her nostrils, her closed eyes. Everything about her was covered in this disgusting acid, and it burned her. So much so that it was almost a relief when she fell like a bag of bones on the floor of some sort of medical bay. She didn't recognize it. The tools and devices looked alien, with angles that made no sense. Strapped to the table in front of her was someone with a green sheet pulled up over their head. Amanda coughed up the black bile that had invaded her throat and vomited. Then she shivered on the ground for a few minutes as she gathered herself. "Remember your training," she said to herself. Feeling a surge of intense emotion, she stood up and walked towards the operating table. She pulled down the sheet to identify the body in front of her. It was her. Blackened pockmarks ruined the face, black veins ran up and down the arms, but this was her. This was her. Then the body on the table sat up suddenly, throwing Amanda back. She tripped over the small device table behind her and landed on her behind. The dead Amanda looked down at her, the operating room light like a halo behind her. The dead body smiled, and the smile twisted into the rictus grin of the old man who trapped her here. The face she looked at was slowly replaced with his. Her eyes never adjusted to the light shrouding its blackened skull. His eyes and teeth shined white in the darkness. At that moment she fell through the world again, this time back into Site-19, but a different place, further away from any of the gates that held either the mercy of escape or the safety of the armed squads that would be descending on this place shortly. She squinted as her eyes began to adjust to the light anew. Two faces looked down at her. An alien orange blob half the size of a cow stood next to a man wearing Foundation security armor in a ruined meeting room. The man reached a hand down to Amanda to help her up. Excerpt from A is for Anomaly and Survival is Not Just For You by Dr. Stanford.
Following 999's termination of 035, it was determined that 999's threat level should be increased. I do not personally believe the entity poses any threat to our continued operation, and likely will continue to protect those it deems worthy. But I will say, given all that we do know, there is a non-zero chance that 999 is capable of terminating any anomaly it comes into contact with. We've yet to see that in action, but ironically that would be a greater threat to Foundation operation than any other potential danger. If you find yourself in danger and 999 offers help, It's advisable to take that help. In the end, I'd rather have living staff than living anomalies, but only just. If you have other options, use those instead.
Joseph Merriweather pulled up his riot shield and charged forward. The security officer was the last person in this section of the site, and he knew that it would be up to him to hold off SCP-106 until backup could arrive. The old man looked perplexed as the brash security officer smashed his way forward, then was doubly confused when he bowled over the old man, knocking them both to the ground. The boardroom was already well destroyed by their back and forth, but this was getting ridiculous. SCP-999 jumped SCP-106 from behind. The entities locked into a contest of strength before the old man just barely managed to throw the little creature to the floor, but it didn't remain small for long. The fight between 106 and Merriweather had generated a lot of black acidic goo all around the room. As 106 disappeared into a pocket dimension, 999 began to absorb the substance, growing larger and larger. It almost seemed like this thing had experience with this sort of problem, and it effortlessly cleaned up the room. By the time it was done, the little creature, originally about the size of a large dog, was a mass of orange goo. Merriweather went over and placed a hand out, letting a pseudopod reach from the central mass and land on his hand. He felt that familiar warmth wash over him. It was rejuvenating. Half an hour had already passed with Joe and this creature repeating the same cycle every time the old man appeared. He had to hold out just a little longer. A D-class would be put in the femur breaker before long, and then the old man would be imprisoned once more. The creature gave Joe a smile, and he was certain he could hear the words, "I will keep you safe, Joe," in his head. And the two of them were still sitting there in the dim red emergency power light half an hour later, when Amanda popped through a black mass of a hole in the ceiling. Excerpt from A is for Anomaly and Survival is Not Just For You, by Dr. Stanford.
The suspected relations between 035 and 106 is still unconfirmed, but it should be noted that following 035's termination, 106 became extremely active. If a fight between 106 is inevitable, I'd argue 999 might be the best entity to help you. Or we could be getting this all wrong, because if they were related, 035 was the little brother of the two. It's possible that 106 is too powerful for 999's abilities to overcome. We won't know until that happens. I suspect that out of simple revenge, 106 may force the issue soon. Don't be between them when it happens.
SCP-106 followed Amanda out of the hole and landed just above her. Joseph had no time to react as a hand snaked out and sunk into his chest. The man and the monster looked into each other's eyes as 106 crushed the man's heart. The security officer collapsed to the ground in a pile of regrets. Then 999 leapt into action. The creature was bigger now than during their last encounter. 106 saw it coming but spent just a moment too long savouring the kill. The mass of orange jelly landed on his face and covered him up. There was a smell in the air, like plastic burning. 106 laughed and sank into the floor. 999 followed. 999 was angry. He hadn't felt anger like this since when he encountered that mask not too long ago. Joe was a good man. Helpful, smart, kind. He'd read the security officer's mind. He knew that truly he was good, and this monster had killed him. And if 999 didn't do anything, the monster old man would kill the woman who fell through the hole. So, as he splattered into the dark green concrete, he reformed himself and started to look around. "Where are you?" it said to itself as it explored the space. 106 couldn't help but chuckle from some faraway perch. He knew he was safe now from this thing, and he'd keep it here until it died or dissolved or came to fear him. But 999 heard the laugh. He heard the thoughts. And 999 rose up and started bounding down the dark green blood-splattered hallways. He came upon an opening and bounded through the large and spacious room with a high throne at the centre. Far above him stood the creature that had hurt his friends. 106 looked down at the creature with curiosity. He stood up and started walking through a new black portal that formed shimmering in the air beside 106's throne. Another tentacle of orange goo snapped out the 30 or so feet between them, and 999 pulled hard. 106 tumbled off his throne and smashed into the floor. 106's broken, raspy voice found purchase inside 999's mind.
"No, impossible. This isn't your realm."
999 just kept pulling. 106's fingers dug small scratches into the ground as he tried to get away. It tried anything within its power to push the little monster away from him, but 999 was resolute. He'd read 106's mind too. There was nothing there but hate. Hate for everyone and everything. He'd even hated his brother, if a bit less than everyone else, and that malice washed over 999 like an ocean. Life is precious. Life is wonderful. But this thing is barely alive. If you kill a killer, then the world has the same number of killers. He'd recalled that from Joe's mind, but he'd already ended the mask, so if he ended the old man too, then there'd be one less killer in the world. 106's eyes went wide in fear as 999 opened its mouth and pulled him inside. Then 999 closed his mouth around the monster and he chewed. It tasted horrible. But then there was silence in his mind and a pulse of power. 999 felt a seed of something else growing within him. He stood up, shining gold in this dark place, and he looked around. This place could use some redecorating. 999 reshaped the void into a lush garden paradise. Twin suns blazed above him from the clouds of a nebula, and he smiled to himself. But what was a place like this without someone to share it with? He opened a new portal and in-dropped Amanda Dalton. She panicked at first, but then SCP-999 reached out a hand and spoke in a deep voice.
Pleased to meet you, ma'am. Would it be alright if I transported you to Gate B now?
Check out this video for another great story, and be sure to like and subscribe if you made it this far. It really helps the channel. Big thanks to Dr. Sumerian for writing this for me, and big up the Patreons Ryan Brenner, Techno Ninja, Infinitune Viger, Andre Bachot, and Sigarus.